Hi, this is Don Gooding with the 4 Colors of Money for Entrepreneurs. This is the second video on forming corporate partnerships. In the first video, I talked about the first 3 stages of business development, what you need to be doing to get a corporate partnership. And then in this video, I'll be talking about the final 3 stages: courtship of potential corporate partners, making the deal, and some things to think about after the deal has been formed. Assuming you've done the preparation, executing the successful courtship of a corporate partner requires attention to people issues as well as to strategy and communications. So here are some of the best practices on the people part of the process. Getting through gatekeepers to the right people is challenging, so make sure that you search for unconventional ways to open doors. University friends, sports teams, hobbies, mentors, favorite coffee shops. It's over time necessary to have lots of connections between your and their organization. So swarm the org, recruit people from your team to reach out to their team. And then over time, you'll need to get a hierarchy of touch points, yours to theirs. So make sure you both tier up and peer up. Match your hierarchy to their hierarchy. And as you get to know their organization, you'll need to figure out who decides. That's not just on their side of the table, but also on yours. Who makes the decisions about the various components that go into a partnership agreement? You'll also find that you'll have a sponsor in the targeted organization, so make sure you're doing their work to help them make this case for the partnership to the ultimate decision makers. Then on your side of the table, you'll want to bring engineers who then know the product and bring the product to the table, but make sure that you train them beforehand to say yes, as in, yes, we can, not, well. Make sure that everyone on your team is actually pulling for the deal to happen. So that means you're going to have to sell inside your organization, not just outside. And then finally, as you get feedback from the targeted partner organization, make sure you're relaying that back into your own organization so that you're all smarter, but you're also all on the same page. Beyond the people issues in corporate partnership courtship, there are some strategy considerations as well. First and foremost, remember that this is a two-way selling situation. Both sides are buying, both sides are selling. So when you go to the table to talk with potential corporate partners, always come from a position of strength. Yes, they are big, but you've done your research, and so you understand their problems, and you're coming to the table with a potential solution to their problems. The other big strategy best practice is to always have competition in potential corporate partnerships. There are almost always big corporate rivals who could also be a good partner for you. So you don't want to overstate it, but sell FOMO, fear of missing out. And by the way, if you notice some similarities between these strategies for corporate partnerships and strategies for equity fundraising, you're absolutely right. Let me finish with some communications tips from some of the best in business development. First, always be responsive to communications from potential corporate partners during this courtship period, no matter what form that communications is coming in. On the other hand, do remember that they are from large organizations that tend to be much slower moving than your very agile company. So don't rush and don't annoy. And then finally, through this long courtship process, make sure that you can sustain enthusiasm. That is essential to achieve success. Let's talk about making the deal. Some of the most successful deal makers are also creative, and they advise that the best deals have never been done before. So yes, study what other partnerships look like, but get creative. Next, structure the deal with the anticipation of success. In other words, don't fall into the lawyer's habits of focusing a lot on what will happen if things go wrong. Also, make sure you're operationally ready to do the deal that you're talking about, which means don't overcommit, either internally or externally. There is some conflicting advice about lawyers. There are some successful deal makers who say, make sure you bring lawyers into the process later, basically after the terms have more or less been negotiated. On the other hand, there are other successful deal makers who say you not only need solid legal advice, but they actually recommend hire an expensive law firm for those particularly difficult negotiations. So speaking of difficult, there are going to be some times when a deal just doesn't seem like it's coming together. So in those situations, regroup, analyze, and see if you can adapt. But the successful deal makers say, don't be afraid to walk away from a deal that isn't either coming together or isn't providing you what you need. And so at the end, make sure that you are ending well with the people on the other side of the table that have been with you through this long process, whether or not you've been able to make a deal. The final stage of corporate partnerships are also important. After the deal, there's a lot of work to be done to turn the potential into a wildly successful partnership. So to start, have an offsite launch or closing ceremony or celebration. You've all worked hard, you've earned it. And then afterwards, make sure that you are owning the corporate partner management after the closing. It's important to make sure that the relationships that you've invested so much in building are sustained and even strengthened over time. Corporate partnerships actually resemble a marriage. They require a lot of care and feeding over time. And like a marriage, it's important to have fun with your partners, not just focus on all the work to be done. Personal chemistry is really important on both sides of the table to sustain these corporate partnerships. And one final note, you should look at every business development deal as having potential for future M&A possibilities. Sometimes a small corporate partnership can eventually turn into the biggest partnership of all. I hope these business development best practices have been helpful in getting you started down the path towards successful corporate partnerships. Now it's time to sit down with your team or mentors or board of directors and ask these 3 questions. First of all, do you have a coherent corporate strategy that naturally leads to a business development strategy? Next, who are the preferred target partners, and what is going to be your detailed 18-month project plan to make those deals happen? And then finally, who on your team has the skills, the personality, and the time to make corporate partnerships happen? Good luck and go make some deals.